I'm Chris Luzniak,
And I'm Rob Byer,
and this is the Debate Math Podcast,
the show where we redefine what it means to debate in mathematics and education.
where multiple sides of ideas are explored, evidence matters, and we all grow and learn from hearing each other.
Because the world and our classrooms are not binary.
So let's dig into this month's debate.
Welcome, listeners. In our last hot seat, Vanessa and Chris challenged the idea that everyone is a math person. They wondered, has this idea gone too far?
In today's hot seat, we're following up on this idea with a subtle but powerful shift in language and mindset. What if we had a word other than mathematician or math person?
So join us as our hot seat guest invites us to rethink not just what we call our students, but how those words shape their relationship with mathematics. As our guest argues, we are all born mathers.
Here in the hot seat is the founder and CEO of My Mathematical Mind, known in the math streets as the Queen Mather. She's the author of Readers Read, Writers Write, Mathers Math, Bridging the Gap Between Literacy and Mathematics. This educator advocates a mindful approach to teaching mathematics, aiming to address math anxiety, build confidence, and foster positive math identity development. She has dedicated her career in doctoral studies to supporting educators with innovative teaching strategies that encourage students to be curious problem solvers and see themselves as assets to the learning community. She's also a puppy mom to a poodle and a multi-poo. She's getting back into crochet and she thinks that beaches are the best. It's Dr. Deborah Pert Creighton. Welcome, Deborah.
Ooh, hello, hello. So excited to be here.
Can you tell our listeners where you are and what your current role is?
All right, I am in the lovely Queen City, Charlotte, North Carolina. Excited to be here. It aligns with my identity, being the Queen Mather and all. And in my current role as Curriculum Strategy Director of Mathematics at Imagine Learning, I get the opportunity to work with teachers and districts and leaders and continue to promote positive math identity, but also I get to shop the curriculum that I'm an author on. It's pretty cool. So I'm a math curriculum author and a consultant, and most recently I added doctor to my resume. My research was focused on supporting elementary educators with overcoming their own math trauma, alleviating math identity so that they can become confident with math instruction, especially in the elementary grades where math anxiety runs rampant. Just saying. But I am excited to join you guys today on the Debate Math Podcast. Woo woo.
But hey, we ask every guest, when did math first become controversial to you?
I know the answer to that. And it feels like it happened just yesterday, even though it was all the way back in fourth grade. Math became controversial for me in fourth grade when I asked specifically about multiplying multi-digit numbers. And when my teacher said, first you put 1 0, then you put 2 zeros, then you put 3 zeros, and I made the mistake of asking a question, I don't know, like, well, will it always work? You just keep adding zeros? Why do we add zeros? Like, what is happening with the zeros? Like, what are we doing? And I was told to stop asking so many questions and just follow the steps. And it was really, I think, in that moment that I decided that math was not for me and I was not for math because I was all about questions. I was curious about everything. I wanted to understand why things worked and to be celebrated in reading and writing for the same behaviors, asking questions, being creative, using your imagination, and being shut down in math class for the same thing. I recognized that math was a little different and probably not something that I would ever love or enjoy. So, because my parents are Caribbean, and if I made a 98, they asked what happened to the other 2 points, I continued to make straight A's in mathematics, but it was not a part of my identity. I didn't really want anything to do with it.
Well, thank you for sharing that story.
Mhm.
And with that, let's get into the debate. We begin with an opening statement from our speaker. Deborah will be arguing that we are all born mathers. And Deborah, the floor is yours.
People often ask me if I'm a mathematician. My immediate response is, well, that's just simply fiction. Mathematician is a very fancy label, but I myself was never invited to that table. Even though math came easy for me, each year teachers chipped away at my curiosity. Don't ask questions, just follow the steps with ease. Make the grades without understanding, simply perform and appease. And perform I did. I performed the heck out of that math. I scored perfect scores on math tests. I did all the right things to make A's in math class. But you know what I had no desire to do? Become a mathematician. Like, who wants to do that? A mathematician? That's so boring. I don't really like math. I don't really accept math as a part of my identity. And I rejected it for a very long time. Why do I share this? Because I thought that I could opt out of mathematics. So that brings me to my point that if someone said, "Are you a reader?" whether you like it or not, you'd have to say, "Well, yeah, I can't read, so I guess that makes me a reader." And if someone asks you if you are a writer, they don't mean, "Are you writing novels?" They just mean, "Can you string together some words to make sentences? Maybe can you write a 3 paragraph or 5 paragraph essay?" Then I'm a writer. But then it was very interesting that when it came to mathematics, you were either a math person or not. So, let me think about this. Someone had to teach me how to read. Someone had to teach me how to write. But I came here recognizing patterns. I understood the difference between quantities and proved it when I had a choice and I could choose two or five of my favorite snack. You know what I chose. The other reason why I decided we needed another way to talk about mathematics being a part of our identity is because I have a definition that I pulled up of a mathematician. Check it out. A mathematician is a professional who uses high-level mathematics, formulas, and data to solve complex problems, develop models, and analyze patterns. They work in fields like engineering, finance, and technology. So I don't do any of those things. But the irony is, mathematics is actually in my job title. And as I said earlier, I am a math curriculum author. So my problem was people calling me a mathematician made them believe I could tutor their niece who was struggling with college mathematics. Not true. So how do we embrace math as a part of our identity without becoming a mathematician or using that term to describe ourselves? We could be readers, writers, and mathers. And babies recognize the difference between quantities, and there's research to prove it. So I'm thinking we're all born mathers. So why not use the term, which simply means using math to make sense of the world? Isn't that everyone? Aren't we all readers, writers, and mathers?
Beautiful. Thank you. A nice, strong, poetic opening. And I want to get your questioning round now. So my first question for you, so you want us to move away from mathematician and say mathers, right? We do math, so we're mathers. Um, and you've been doing this for a while, so how do students respond to it? Does it sound like weird to them? Do they like it?
So, the first example I will give is a friend and colleague, a bestie and colleague, Adrian Paul, was still teaching when I introduced the term for the first time. She was teaching at an all boys school in DC, and she was teaching pre algebra. And when I told her all about it, she said, "I'll do it." And I said, "I'll do what?" Because I didn't ask her to do anything. She said, "I'll start using it." And I said, "Okay, well, tell me how it goes." She went back to school and she just started saying, "Yeah, so our mathers." And then when the mathers and one of the students actually said, "Mather, why do you keep saying that? What is a mather?" And she said, like player, singer, dancer, mather. You're using math to make sense of the world. And the student, the seventh grade young man said, "Oh, that makes sense." And that's been in my experience that many students don't think anything of it. We tell them what we call things all the time. So especially in the younger grades, if we say, "Where are all my mathers?" They just respond. We do the same thing. "Where are all my readers?" Whether they can read words or not, they're like, "Here I am." "Where are all my writers?" They're just scribbling, but "here I am." And then we're all the kids who kind of don't hate math. Like, we need a word so that we can continue to invite them to embrace mathematics as a part of their identity. Mathematician is a lot of pressure. To be 7 and to be called a mathematician, I get it. You want to call them what you want them to be. But guess what? My mom called me a pediatrician. I did not like the smell of formaldehyde. I did not want to cut the frog and the pig. So she called me that almost my entire life because she wanted a doctor in the family. Shout out, Mom, you got a doctor, just not that kind. And it didn't make me want to be that anymore. And I actually think the opposite can happen, that if you are imposing mathematician prematurely, that you might really start to feel insecure when you're failing or when it's hard. It's like, oh, maybe I'm not worthy. Maybe I'm just not a math person. Maybe my brain just doesn't, work with math. And then you also think about the negative stereotypes. Who wants to be the guy with the wily curled hair and the big glasses? And it's like, oh, all mathematicians are dot, dot, dot. So I might reject it because I'm trying to be cool. But the most important thing is you get to choose to be a mathematician and put in the hard work to become that career. It's an actual career. I don't know anyone who's a professional reader or writer. I mean, unless you're a journalist, a proofreader, but how can you be just someone who uses math to make sense of the world? You could be a mather. It's not
You know,
scary.
well, I want to go back a little bit, just like a handful of sentences, because you were talking about the negative stereotypes, and I think about like, growing up and how somebody who was good at math, quote unquote, good at math, how they were portrayed in like TV shows and in
Mm-hmm.
movies, and
Yep.
they looked a certain way, they acted a certain way, and people
Mm-hmm.
treated them a certain way. So this terminology of like that we're all born mathers, like how does that shift like the social aspect within a classroom?
Ooh. Oh, that's a good one because I think again, if you're in a room with students, and I did this a couple summers ago out in Sacramento with students, and I asked them to step forward if it was a true statement, and then step back and then step forward. So I say, "I can read." Well, they all stepped forward, thank goodness, because they were going to fourth grade. And then "I love reading." Okay. But we're all readers. Okay. So whether we loved it or not, we are readers. And did the same thing with writers and the same thing with mathers. And they learn chants and affirmations and everything. So now we're leveling the playing field. That even when I make a mistake, I'm still a mather. Like you can't take that away from me. I was born a mather and I am not going to stop being a mather because I got an F on a math test. But if we continue to present mathematics as something that only the smartest, fastest, those are the ones who are the real math people, once I stop meeting that standard, then I opt out. Why try? I can't even achieve that level of brilliance. I think we have to really look at illuminating the brilliance of all students at all times and celebrating great thinking and great reasoning. All of those things are a part of being a great mather. And then all students could stand from a place of confidence, not fear, and choose to go into STEM, choose to go on to be a mathematician. And if we frame it so that they recognize that they are building the core skills to have options later in life, then I think that alone could help with the social aspect because we know the social capital comes with being the smartest, fastest, the one who knows the math. But what if we all know the math? What if that fast person could learn something from the person who is taking their time to figure out a different way? I had a student, a third grader, who called himself Mr. Algebra because he was doing Kumon or something. And he was always saying, I don't really need to know this. I already do algebra. And I was like, oh, okay, Mr. Algebra. So how many different ways did you figure out? And I'd give an example. And he's like, well, the answer is 27. I'm like, that wasn't the question. Like, you're answering a question that wasn't asked. I said, you know that student over there who I know he's thinking, yeah, I'm way smarter than that student. He found 5 ways. He's like, well, wait, what? Okay, so there is a disruption to the social hierarchy when I'm telling you that there are kids who are using manipulatives who are coming up with brilliant strategies for solving problems, for representing different multiplication expressions, using visuals and diagrams, and you just wrote down 36 and thought you were done. The great thinkers are celebrated in here. Sloth mode was something we celebrated. It's like being faster doesn't mean being smarter, and it doesn't mean being better. And a student could say, hey, sloth mode, I'm thinking deeply right here. So I think we change our language and we establish cultures and communities where it makes sense to everyone to take your time, to share your thinking, and to make mistakes.
I wanna push back a little here because when you said we all can write, so we're writers. I actually think
Mhm.
of writer as like a sophisticated professional thing, and I've even written a book, and I still don't think I'm a writer. Like I can write, but I don't. So I wonder if writer and mather are still putting this pressure on the this like career title stuff. Like, are we just changing the word from mathematician to mather and still putting the pressure on kids?
Yeah, no, I disagree. I'm just going to say it because I think when I do my homework and I had to write a paragraph, that is the act of being a writer. So, being a professional writer, you might be an author, a journalist, you might write a column. Like, there are careers that you can name outside of writing in a journal, writing a short story. Like, I wrote stories when I was itty bitty. I was reading at an early age and I wrote stories about everything. My favorite thing was personification. The lamppost in New York City had a lot to say. So, yes, I was a writer because I was writing stories. But I do think there is this next level with writing, but you can also find different titles that go along with being a professional writer, or you simply put professional in front of it. But I'm an author. I consider myself to be a writer, and I was a writer before the book came out.
In the same vein, so we're taking you want to take away the word mathematician and put math there, and I like it. Is the problem that we should just make mathematician like a sexier career instead of like the crazy messy hair guy and make it more appealing? Should we just start marketing it differently?
Well, let's be honest. It would be cool if we had sexy mathematicians, portrayed in film and on television, but it doesn't change the fact that it requires hard work to become a mathematician. And that's the thing that I'd like to emphasize is that just because the math gets hard doesn't mean you should opt out, give up, or it's not for you. But I also don't want to minimize the fact that to be an actual mathematician requires work. Like you can't just say, oh, yeah, I'm going to be a mathematician, which is why I don't think we just throw that label onto students because it's almost offensive. When I talked to Zach Champagne, we had this great conversation about how if I were a mathematician, I might be offended that a little 7-year-old is now being called a mathematician. Do you know how long it took for me to become a mathematician and how seriously I take it, how invested I am? So, could we portray them not only as the crazy person who's locked in the room solving problems on a chalkboard, and people don't even do that anymore, really? But yeah, they could use some rebranding, some fresh marketing spins. But I don't think you take away the fact that it's hard. It's hard work. It's going to take dedication to become a mathematician, an engineer, to become anything in the STEM field, but not in a way that you should just not even try. So if you're a mather and you're confident in your math ability and the skills that you have mastered, then you're not afraid to go to the next level to become a mathematician, but you also know it's a choice. It's that fork in the road where you decide mathematician or I'm just going to continue to be a mather. But a mathematician is also a mather. So I think mather kind of includes all of us, where mathematician, rightfully so, what did the definition say? An expert in mathematics who is studying mathematics to the highest levels? I didn't do that, which is why I always said, whoa, I'm not a mathematician. You got the wrong person.
I'm going to continue pushing back
Okay.
because there are many schools that track students, and
Mm-hmm.
they have these tracks where you know these kids they're just not math people.
Mm.
So what do you say, or how do you address this with teachers who believe that some of these kids just they're just not math people, especially because if you ask the kids, their grandmother's grandmother's grandmother also was not a math person.
Okay. Let's flip it to the reading side. How many teachers that you know or have ever known would say to a struggling reader, a student who is struggling with reading, because it's not your identity to be a struggling reader, but you might struggle with aspects of reading. Well, your mom couldn't really read that well either. You should probably just quit now. Reading's just not for you. You should just give up. Anyone? Can you think of any teacher who would like to keep their job who would say that to students? Not that there aren't some who do, but I think it's the same thing on the math side, that teachers who believe that in their hearts, again, my doctoral study was all about dealing with the teachers who have not healed from their own math trauma, who have not alleviated their own math anxiety, and who possibly have a negative math identity that they are now projecting onto students. Because there was a study, ooh, 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 I can't think of the name, but before this airs, I'll give it to you. And it was a study that talked about how all students, male and female, like there are no gender differences between levels of math anxiety and intellectual capacity around learning mathematics. And starting around age 7, girls start to embrace the idea that boys are just better at math. And when people say things like, girls can be good at math too, you're implicitly saying that boys are good at math. And if girls work really, really hard, they can be too. So we slowly strip away the math confidence, the curiosity, not the math ability, but we know the self-fulfilling prophecy. You believe it enough, you don't try as hard because you know you're not supposed to be able to do it. And there was fake science that said girls' and women's brains are too delicate to learn mathematics. What kind of craziness is that? But it used to be something that everyone believed. So it's not about the language in this case as much as it is about the mindsets and beliefs of the adults speaking over those children and actually creating gender gaps, creating gaps in ability in mathematics. We create it. We, the system, we, the people, we, the non believing parents and teachers who are saying, you're just not a math person, give up. Would you say it about reading? Words, you don't do them. So just stop now. You're 8. You're just, reading is not for you.
Okay, so I hear what you're saying, and I'm wondering if teachers can unintentionally
Mhm.
undermine this message. And I'm thinking of things like specifically the way that we grade, our grading practices, or even like the pressures of pacing guides. Like,
Mm.
could either of those unintentionally undermine? We're not like these are the people that their hearts are in the good place, like they
Mhm.
believe every kid can succeed, but somehow we're undermining through the message. How does that look, and what can we how can we fix that?
Well, I think when I think about mather, the main thing that I emphasize is that it's not just happening in the classroom. So to me, that's the first thing. Grading, it's a thing, it's not going anywhere. And I think that is something that needs to be addressed. But I think the bigger issue is limiting mathematics to the math block. And what are the ways in which we continue to speak about mathematics and kids being mathers in the cafeteria, or when they're out on the playground, or when they're in study hall, not working on math assignments. So there's that issue that we need to consider that mathers are mathing all the time and helping kids see that you are mathing when you're telling time, when you're planning to go to the party and you're telling your parents, well, we have to leave now because if we're going to be on time, like all of those things are mathing. That there is mathematics in art, that there is math in music. Oh, you want to be a rock star, but you think you can avoid math. That's not true. Ask Vanessa Vicaria. You can't do it. Math is a part of everything that you want to be when you grow up. You don't opt out of math and then say, I'll just go into construction because that's not a mathy thing. Absolutely is a mathy thing. So it's to me, it's not just about the grading that can make a student believe they're not good at math. I think that the emphasis needs to be on just like reading, you read for pleasure and you read for grades. You read to get information and you have to read for the state exams. That there are two spaces for mathematics as well: classroom math, testing math, grading math, and math for life. So if we keep those things going, then I would hope that students who make an F on a math test don't give up on math forever, especially because math is taught. Yes, we build on it and concepts build and grow on one another, but a test is an isolated moment of demonstrating your knowledge on that specific thing. And it does not rule out your math future or your future career or the trajectory of your life because you didn't grasp a specific concept. But the messaging for teachers and for the adults and the leaders around grades, that to me applies to all subjects, not just mathematics. I think the difference is mathematics gets limited to the space of classroom math and grading, and kids are not experiencing it in all spaces. Because if I didn't do well on the state reading assessment, it doesn't mean I throw away all my books if I love reading.
Last question from me, because you just mentioned our all of us, we have this good friend Vanessa. Um, can't wait till this comes out and we all get the text. Um, or the voice note. Um, how does this idea of one being a mather
Mhm.
combat math anxiety within the classroom?
Okay. Well, math anxiety, first of all, is super complex, and it is, it is an emotional response to the act of doing mathematical things. And I'd like you to think about it in three different buckets. If I'm an adult who is a teacher, I might have math anxiety or experience math anxiety when I'm learning math for myself. I might experience math anxiety when I am doing math tasks or anything that requires math in my life. I might have math anxiety when it's time to teach mathematics because I can do it, but I don't understand how to actually get someone else to understand it. So, teacher math anxiety is to me the first layer of this is impacting how students feel about mathematics because my math identity, my levels of math anxiety impact how I teach and deliver mathematics. I think that math anxiety can have a great impact in a negative way on students' learning and their success with mathematics. And it's because if I am a teacher who is insecure in my math knowledge and my background, and I see a student using some new creative strategy and they're getting the right answer over and over again, but I don't understand it, I might say, whoa, whoa, I don't know what you're doing there, but stop it. But it makes sense to me and I got the right answer. That's not what it says in the teacher's guide. So I need you to never do that again. So now I'm disrupting sense making for a student who is thinking about mathematics in a new way, in a different way, and most importantly, in a way that made sense to them. So as a teacher, my anxiety, my math anxiety can impact my ability to teach students well, not because I don't want to, but because I unintentionally might disrupt sense making when I don't know the right question to ask to move their thinking along, or when I don't know what to do with the student who keeps coming up with all the strategies and, oh, what do? I don't want to discourage them, but I don't know if it's right. What are the things that we can help teachers and leaders? Because there are many leaders who do walkthroughs, and in their mind, they're thinking, this math thing is not for me, but I'm going to stand here and act like it is. And then I'm going to hire someone to go do the math support thing because math's not my jam. But then you have students who are experiencing math anxiety. What do we do there? So we need teachers to heal and have their own support so that they can step in and support a student who is anxious. The first thing that you can do is build everyone's comfort and create a community and a space where it is okay to ask questions, where it is okay to fail and try again, to make mistakes, not just on a poster, but to walk it out, to be the teacher who says, like I used to my students, is this a mistake on the board and you just left me out here looking crazy? Did anyone see that I made a mistake? And they're like, well, I didn't want to say any. Well, you better if you care anything about me. I want to learn from you too. So to be vulnerable and say we're in this together and not be embarrassed and not believe I'm supposed to be the keeper of all the knowledge with all the answers. I told my students all the time, I have no idea. What do you think? Ooh, can I borrow that strategy? Can you explain it again, but a little slower this time? Can you help me understand what is going on in that beautiful brain of yours? And do you know what? I didn't have to tell my students to show their work because they understood that showing their work was to help someone else understand what was happening in the beautiful brain of theirs. So again, it's about our mindsets, our beliefs, and the culture that we establish in our classrooms and in our school buildings so that students feel that they can be brave enough. I had students come up after showing all the strategies. Come up here and tap the one that resonates with you, that makes sense to you. And when students said, I did it this way, I'm like, oh, I don't really understand that. I would tell them, if you don't understand it, just etch and sketch it out of your head. That just means it's not the strategy for you today. So making connections across mathematical ideas and with one another, building that community of mathers and establishing norms that it's okay and feels safe to make mistakes, to share unfinished thinking and partial conceptions and not feel attacked or embarrassed. That's the solution to me. Build up our comfort.
Beautiful. And I think on that note, we'll conclude our questioning round.
Hi, listeners. Before we get into final arguments, we want to pause and have you ponder for a moment. What did the guest just say? And what stood out for you?
Whatever is on your mind, we want to hear it.
Did you know you can text us your thoughts?
Just head to the show notes for this episode and look for the text us link. We'd love to hear what you have to say.
And with that, let's hear our closing statements. We will now end by giving Deborah a few minutes to make her final arguments to you. Deborah, take it away.
Okay. If we want to see a shift in the landscape of mathematics, if we want to encourage more students to consider going into the STEM field, then we need to consider that we want all students to embrace mathematics as a part of their identity. We want them to believe that they can be readers, writers, and mathers. And as I told my students every year, it is not my job to make you fall in love with mathematics, but it is my job to help you feel comfortable with novel problems, to be confident when you face math problems that may be challenging, because you absolutely 100% are born mathers. You can't get away with it. You use math every day in everything you do. Name what it is you want to be when you grow up, and I can tell you how you're going to need to use mathematics. So, with that, I would say if readers read and writers write, it only makes sense that mathers math. Ask any toddler if they'd rather have 2 or 5 of their favorite snack, and you've got your answer. We are born mathers.
Wonderful. Thank you, Deborah. Good job. And that concludes this hot seat debate.
And thanks to those who are listening, and we hope you enjoy and learn from this. We encourage you to take a moment, ponder the arguments that Deborah shared today, and share with your friends and consider what resonated with you. And I also encourage you to start calling some kids mathers. Be sure to follow us and share your thoughts on this debate on Blue Sky at Debate Math.
So as we wrap this up, Deborah, where can listeners find you, learn more about you, contact you?
All right. So if you're looking for me anywhere on social media, Mathers Gonna Math. That's mathersgonnamath.com. That is at Mathers Gonna Math. You can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram. I am on Blue Sky. I just need to get back in there every now and then and check it out. And most recently, my team has launched us on TikTok. So Mathers Gonna Math everywhere on social media. You can find me.
Wonderful, thank you.
Want to learn more about incorporating debate activities into your math classroom? Go to luzniak.com/podcast to sign up for my mailing list, learn more about debate math, and connect with resources you could use in your classroom today. That's luzniak.com/podcast.
Feel free to reach out to us with comments and questions on debatemath.com or follow us on social media at debatemath or at debatemathpod on Twitter.
And don't forget that you can text us with your thoughts on any of the debates too.
You can also rate and review us on Apple Podcasts.
Or wherever you listen to this podcast. Your feedback is super important to us. Well, that's all from us.
Looking forward to debating with you next episode. Until next time, cheers.